But it's on that last couple of questions that I really want to focus right now, and that is around the situation at the Cargill meat plant just outside of Calgary. There are nearly 1,000 people who work there who have contracted COVID-19. And as you heard from the questions posed to Minister Shandro as well as Dr. Hinshaw, that is the largest outbreak in any workplace in Canada. I want to bring in for some reaction because the plant is back up and running as of today. The head of the union president representing workers at that plant, Thomas Hesse, he joins us from Calgary. Hi, Mr. Hesse, good to see you again.
Good afternoon, good to see you.
So let me pick up exactly where that press conference left off. And that was with Dr. Hinshaw saying that at the beginning of this, the public health response, the government's response focused too much on the site itself and not on sort of the so-called community transmission, I'm paraphrasing, but basically what was happening outside of the site. What is your assessment of the response so far to what's happened at Cargill?
Well, the problem I see is I hear these phrases that suggest we're not going to blame the victim, but all public health officials seem to talk about are things like people sharing households, people sharing rides. But on Easter Sunday, I wrote a letter to the government and to Cargill, and I said, close the plant, pay the workers, and assemble some kind of independent scrutiny with respect to what was happening at the plant. At that point, there were 30 or 40 diagnoses, and neither the government nor Cargill stepped in to close the plant or at least suspend operations for a while so we could have some meaningful discussions about what ought and ought not to have been done. And as a result, the number of diagnoses and cases skyrocketed. Someone died. I attended the funeral, a very sad funeral today for Hip Bui, Vietnamese immigrant. She and her husband had arrived as boat people. This is a really ridiculous situation. So we talk about not blaming the victim, but it seems that all of the framing and the dialogue is not about the hard reality of these plants. I'm not hearing any public officials, in fact, say these plants are in business to make a lot of money. Cargill is a huge multinational corporation owned by a private corporation in the United States. The Cargill family, 15 of whom are billionaires. They're in this country making a lot of money, a profit for every cow. And these operations are based on intense philosophies that have to do with very high production, hundreds of workers moving in and out of tight spaces every day, thousands of cows being slaughtered every day. And I'm not hearing any of this dialogue or any framing around that. Instead, what I'm now hearing is, we don't want to blame the victim, but yet the default position is always, well, it has something to do with the community, or it has something to do with shared rides, or it has something to do with people living in the same apartment. Well, no one would be sharing a ride if that plant had been closed. And the reason people are sharing apartments is they're disadvantaged people who have trouble paying their rent because they're not making enough money and having a meaningful living working in these plants. So all roads still lead back to the way business is done in plants like this.
The company says, and they did close, I guess, mostly on April 20th, I believe the date was. The company defends its decision to reopen today, saying that they have bolstered safety measures, installed protective barriers, and provided protective equipment for workers. Have you spoken to anybody who went back to work today, and what is the feeling among people who are headed back to work?
Well, I communicated with a gentleman today who told me that he was COVID positive, and he was asked to return to work, notwithstanding the fact that he was COVID positive. We've spoken to a worker today that asked for a face shield in the plant and was told he couldn't have one, so he just left. In the last 48 hours, in fact, we've communicated directly with over 650 workers. 80% of them told us that they didn't want the plant to reopen and it shouldn't reopen, and 85% said they were scared to return to work. That's in the last 48 hours, yet the plant reopens today. One of the real fundamental problems here is neither Cargill nor the government of Alberta and its agencies are interviewing workers. And Cargill's not listening to its employees, and the government is not listening to its citizens.
So what is the remedy that you'd like to see, and who might deliver it? Last time we spoke, Mr. Hussey, you were interested in the federal government intervening in some capacity. The Prime Minister was asked about it today. He mentioned the CFIA, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, is responsible for the safety of food, but that provinces have jurisdiction about the safety of those sites. I'm paraphrasing what he said, but that is what I got from it. Have you had any further discussions with the federal government, any kind of response to the request for them to intervene?
No, and certainly discussions around jurisdiction, in my opinion, represent a failure to show strong leadership. COVID-19 is a black swan event, an event that I've never seen anything really comparable in my entire life. And circumstances like this require leadership not passing the buck or little nuanced debates about jurisdiction. Having said that, we would still like to see some sort of independent body or independent investigator do some things that really aren't that complicated. First, continue to keep the plant on pause, bring together experts, have workers interviewed. Unless you understand the bottom-up perspective of the people that are actually doing the job on the shop floor, you will never have a real grasp on why they're scared to go to work. They think the plant shouldn't open. The fact of the matter is that in the last 48 hours, over 650 workers have said, please don't open the plant, I'm scared. And many of them have not shown up for work. Just a small fraction of the workers showed up today. In many ways, the plant hasn't really reopened. This is a business that has a couple of thousand workers and slaughters 4,000 to 5,000 cattle a day. I'm hearing that they've done some nominal slaughter today based on the very small numbers of workers that are there. I'm told that moving a cow through the production line at that plant normally takes around 40 minutes. And it's taking an hour and 40 minutes today because the workers aren't showing up. They're refusing to come to work.
Okay, I have to leave it there. I'm out of time. Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Hussey. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you. That
is Thomas Hussey, the United Food and Commercial Workers Local 401 president. He represents workers at the Cargill meat plant outside of Calgary. Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.